Let's get this thing started off. First thing on the news today, I think it's the biggest one here, especially here in the U.S. Rob Cain of the USA Women's 15s team stepped down. Stepped down. Now, I don't think that is something that is super surprising because of the fact that there was a lot of talks, especially after the Rugby World Cup recently. And then I think whenever Goff put out the article shortly after the lack of qualification for the men, it was a big question of what is going to be the direction of USA Rugby in this next phase now that we're no longer Rugby World qualified for the men's side. And for what it's worth, was kind of a failure for the women's side, especially in comparison to what you got in 2017. For the women's side, only winning 2 games to in the Rugby World Cup, so there was a lot of questions to be had, and it's a little bit sad because of the fact that Rob Cain came in with such a such big fanfare relative to how it is with rugby because of the success he had in South Africa, and he had been known for being a winner. And for what it's worth, I think he showed that he could win. Definitely again in some individual stages. But it just wasn't enough, especially considering the amount of talent that we had on the women's side. Now, I've heard nothing but good things about him. I don't think there's a situation of him being an asshole, or being wronged, or people really having complaints. I know there was a lot in the past of other coaches, but I hadn't heard anything about Rob Cain. If something did, please let me know. I will retract, and I don't know. It's still all rumor mill if that's the case. But for me, I had not heard anything. But, we're at this point where we have to figure out this crossroads. And in this crossroads, it adds another little extra point in there. Now, this one I'm going to throw into the rumor mill and a little bit of disdain. Now, obviously, 2033, 2031, Rugby World Cup's coming in, and the rise of world rugby, well, not the rise, but the influence of world rugby might be rearing its little head. And there is a rumor that's going around that World Rugby said, hey, all right, we're about to kick in. We have now begun the investment into the Rugby World Cup in 2031 here in the U.S., and we don't want this to be messed up. So we're about to come in and clean house and make sure we implement a system that works, which, if the rumors of that are true, and I can't say a source, I heard it from a little birdie, a vine, a piece of grapefruit, whatever the colloquialism is. But if World Rugby is coming in to influence systems and actions, I'm a little nervous about that. I think if you've heard me the last few months, I'm not the biggest fan of World Rugby's style of influencing direction. Sometimes you're a little two-handed. I remember talking to a friend about this, and this is going to sound a little controversial, but to me it sounds almost similar to when the U.S. entered Afghanistan to give democracy, or entered into Iraq to provide democracy. It's overlaid. It's a concept that in public sounds good. Hey, we're coming in to help USA Rugby. They're a mess. They're broke. They're whatever. But we're really just going to try and place our own influence on how we foresee things to be done. And it's funny. Pat Clifton put out this 3-part article through Rugby Morning, my guy John's channel, his newsletter. I would suggest go checking out that article if you hadn't had a chance. It's actually pretty good. Some solid knowledge if you definitely aren't in the know, and some good positioning on where rugby in the U.S. needs to stand. But for me, it reiterated a factor of the influence of world rugby, and we're talking. The reason my issue comes in, because I know a lot of people will say, hey, World Rugby tries to help. They provide grants. They should, kind of see their investment, see what grows through their investment, if you want to call it that. But the problem is, historically, World Rugby or the International Rugby Board prior to have been literally the hands reason why a lot of these unions don't grow, or hands reason why a lot of the resources are limited in the unions themselves. Like it's a problem in and of itself. It is a massive level of ownership trying to be had. Even the issue with USA Rugby is a problem based off of the RFU and World Rugby coming together to create RIM with USA Rugby, which is what ultimately was part of the reason that bankrupted the USA Rugby after 2018. So to have World Rugby kind of be like, all right, we're going to come in, allegedly, nothing has been set in stone, but allegedly, I wouldn't be surprised, come in to be like, all right, we're going to make sure that you guys shape up and ship out, correctly and get your rugby together in the country. That's wild. It's wild. Like it is almost reminiscent of colonialism. It's like the Brits are coming back at us again. They're like, hey yo, all right, you might have gotten independence in 1776. We might have lost the War of 1812, but we're gonna come back. We're gonna get our hands back in here, and the U.S. will recognize us as a colony. I wonder if that's why European appraisement has been going higher. Conspiracy. Think about it. No, but seriously though, I do worry about World Rugby doing it because I don't think they actually have an understanding of American stylization, American culture, American media. I think there's the surface, but American media. I'm pretty sure that they have people, who are maybe agencies here in the States that they're probably going to use as reference points and consultations, but I still don't necessarily think that they're actually going to understand, even within the rugby scope, just how broad it is. And I'll bear this through day in and day out. It is something that is just concerning to me. So this, in connection with Rob Cain, which I don't think anybody really is too surprised. He made a really great tweet about the announcement, so I thought it was really sweet too. And I feel for the women who have coached underneath him and that love him. I'm hoping that we find a coach, but more importantly, a system that will allow them to be able to be far more sustainable and as well way more stable and consistent and developing in the rugby and performances that had to be made. But I don't want World Rugby out in here. All right, so I kind of split two parts. I don't want World Rugby in U.S. And we can talk about media rights. I actually put this on my TikTok at GiftTime Rugby, but the media rights situation is part of the reason why it makes me nervous about World Rugby putting too much of a hand in USA Rugby. It's almost like they created a problem to create that. They're a pharmaceutical company. They created the problem to be able to solve the problem, and now we're kind of stuck. We're gonna see them try and be like, oh, we're gonna be more academies, after universities, even though that's the culture of the U.S. I always find it weird that Brett Gosmer decided to go over to, who was the former CEO for World Rugby, decided to go over to NFL Europe division and take over. It's connected. It's all connected, people. It's all connected. But yeah. But all in all, best wishes to Rob Cain. A great tenure that he had, a good tenure that he had, and I think we saw a lot of development, especially in the women's game under his regime. And I hope that we continue to see it grow some more. And I'm very interested to see how much more of the USA Rugby community administrative change is going to happen, because now we have an extra 5 years before the next Rugby World Cup, and obviously 8 years until the men's, and 10 until the women's. So this is gonna be a wild one. This is gonna be a wild one. For a while I lost my smile, but they still couldn't steal my style. Now they're never gonna bring me down.